Hello, welcome everybody. It is that time of the week and it is that time of the day. 12 o'clock every single Monday. You can watch college football coast to coast with your host, Pigskin Pete, and my co-host, the voice of college football, Mark Rogers TV. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well. I am doing great on this fine Monday morning. And of course, it's March, so everybody's thinking college football.
Yes.
Sure.
So whose idea was it to do a college football show in March again? I can't remember if it was my idea or your idea.
I'm going to blame it on you. Your idea.
Right.
What were you thinking?
As I was saying before the stream came on here, at this time of year, no news is good news. If your team is in the headlines for one reason or another, 9 times out of 10, it's for a bad reason. Right, Mark?
If you see this helmet right behind my right ear, they are the poster child right now, even eclipsing Tennessee, which I think Tennessee has pretty much been the program of bad news for 12 or 13 years, but specifically the last 6 months. But LSU, there's all sorts of issues coming out of LSU as well. Most of it stems to Les Miles, but it also connects to what could be going on currently or has gone on under Ed Ogeron. So yeah, there's you want to stay out of the off-season news because it usually involves some player misconduct, issues with the program, or somebody got hurt.
Yeah, as if Heupel didn't have an uphill battle coming into Tennessee to throw this on top of him in his first offseason, trying to prepare for a season. So I didn't read the article, so I don't want to, this is all alleged. I don't know anything about it other than I believe it was 4 players. Is that right, Mark? Do you know about this?
I believe it was 3 players.
3. Okay. 3 players that were arrested and charged with, possession of marijuana or something along those lines. Drug paraphernalia. Okay. So what they had a ball, whatever, who knows, a bong or something. But here's the thing that I just skimmed over the article, and there was something that confused me about this, is that they mention, I believe, it was some sort of a robbery took place, but I didn't see anybody charged with robbery or whatever, or assault. So I don't understand what happened there. I guess I should have. I guess if I was going to talk about it on the show today, I probably should have read the article. Maybe some people in the chat can help me out, but it seems to me if there's a burglary, then somebody should be charged with that instead of a marijuana pipe or whatever.
I was hurriedly surfing for an answer to go to the article, and I couldn't find it because I did the same thing. I looked at it and was like, are these guys significant players? Which 2 of them played. They were fairly significant. They got playing time. As I think we basically had 2 freshmen and maybe 1 sophomore. They were relatively young players, and one was or they were just, again, I'm speculating on what I thought I remembered seeing, or maybe they hadn't even, maybe we're talking 2 4-stars that haven't even played. Now that's coming back to me. A 3-star and a couple 4-stars.
I know for sure at least one of them is a early enrollee. So he's a freshman, hasn't even seen the field yet. Okay. I know that for a fact. I don't know about if there's another one or not, but well, hello, Matt Dummett in the chat here. Country Tiger decided to show up and hang out with us today, Mark. John Serrain and the real Big Lee says, how are y'all doing today? So players getting in trouble all over the place. And look, that saying, don't throw stones if you live in a glass house, Mark. Well, Clemson player in the news the past week. I talked about this several times on my call-in shows. But Darian Kendrick, first of all, he was released from the team about a week ago. Dabo Swinney had basically just said he had enough. He ran out of chances. He got in trouble several times over the past couple of years. Not in trouble with the law, but in-house, just team violation, rule violations. And so Dabo Swinney had enough and showed him the door. And then it wasn't 3 days later, so I think it was last Thursday maybe, he's arrested on gun and drug charges. Sort of similar to what happened here at Tennessee. But he was at home in his hometown, so he obviously left Clemson's campus. He's from Rock Hill, South Carolina. And from what I understand, again, allegedly, he was found in his car asleep behind the wheel, parked, with a firearm in his lap. And I guess once they got into the car, they searched the car and found the weed or whatever. So a bad week all around for Darian Kendrick. Now, he didn't go out rob. As far as I know, he didn't hurt anybody. He didn't shoot anybody. He didn't rob anybody. He just had he had a firearm with him and some weed. Anyway, a bad week for him, getting kicked out of school, and then a few short days later being arrested. So again, if you're a fan of any team out there, from coast to coast, you don't want to see your team in the headlines when you wake up in the first thing I do when I wake up, Mark, is I go on Google and search college football news, and I just pray every morning that I don't see Clemson in the headline whenever I click it.
Yeah, it can only be bad at this point. Yes. At this time of year, unless it's a made-up story like we're going to rank the 10 best quarterbacks, or those kind of stories that are just made-up news, just opinion pieces. But that story is disturbing concerning Darian Kendrick, but at the same time, it validates Dabo Swinney's decision.
Right. And he even admitted it. He was interviewed after his departure, I guess you would say. And he basically said, I screwed up one too many times. So he took full responsibility. He did, he wasn't running around pointing the finger and saying, oh, I got a raw deal here. Dabo Swinney's, screwed me over. He didn't say any of that. He said basically, he gave me 9 chances and I exhausted all of them. So he knew what was up. You mentioned the Les Miles situation down at obviously he was at Kansas, but this took place when he was at LSU. Is that correct?
Yes.
So again, allegedly he was having inappropriate relationships or contact of some sort with college females that attended LSU. Is that correct?
That's a large part of it right there. And I am the first person to say innocent until proven guilty. Let due process play out. I'm not the one that's going to be the social media justice police to point fingers at people and let's see the investigation play out. But we're also talking about an individual who led this program at Oklahoma State for a number of years, that it was confirmed, documented of what kind of program that was, that the guy not only turned a deaf ear and a blind eye to all sorts of chaos going on, he actually initiated it. He actually built the culture that involved drugs and misbehavior and sexual favors and all those things going on at Oklahoma State. So that all came out while he was at LSU, and it was reported very exhaustively by Sports Illustrated. Was right at the front cover of the main magazine. So he led that kind of program at Oklahoma State. There were more just rumblings at LSU and kind of one-off incidents and situations that never led to anything serious while he was there. And here we are 5 years after he was ousted. I think he left in 2016, I believe.
Yeah.
That mid 2016, that all this is coming to light, that involves his own personal conduct and also what he allowed to happen out there that he never reported and allowed his players to conduct themselves in inappropriate ways.
And of course, you mentioned earlier, this is sort of spilled over into Ed Orgeron as well. So we don't know what the future is going to hold there. Now, if they continue to play the way they played on the field, forget off the field, if they continue to go down the way that they went last season, then he won't have a job there for another few years anyway. But we'll have to see what comes out. This is a 30 for 30 in the making with Les Miles, Mark, because I mean, it seems like you mentioned, he had the reputation at Oklahoma State, spilled over into LSU. He was always sort of a weird, quirky guy. Something about LSU coaches in recent history, right? Les Miles, a very weird guy. Ed Orgeron, you know, he's Ed Orgeron. he's definitely one of a kind type of guy. And we saw what happened when they won the national championship against Clemson. You had Odell Beckham Jr. down there on the sideline giving out $100 bills to players, and I think he was clearly intoxicated. It was a weird situation. What's going on down there in the bayou? Something in the water down there, Mark.
Yeah, we've posted a few videos on it. We've got a guy that comes on a regular basis who breaks it all down for us. So there's more to be discovered and dealt with. So it's far from over at this point. But the other portion of this that lends me to believe the truth behind it versus, again, letting the investigation play out, not accusing anyone, that on top of him conducting that kind of program at Oklahoma State, and that all being confirmed, and then one-off incidents at LSU while he was there, and then this all coming out, it's not like, okay, one player, one incident, what really happened here, let's find out. No, it's 8, 10, 11 players, multiple incidents, different times, different places, different years.
Yeah.
So it's hard to believe that Les Miles, number one, completely mended his ways from Oklahoma State to LSU, and number two, that there isn't a lot of truth to all those incidents.
And I think this is it, right? This is the end of the road for Les Miles. I mean, we're not going to see a situation like we're seeing with what's his face,
Hugh Freeze.
Hugh Freeze, right? Where he gets a second chance at a lower level school, or I mean, at this point, it's over, right?
Yeah. Why do you hire that?
Yeah.
Kansas made the obvious move that, okay, he didn't take us from 3-9 to 9-3, so let's hope we can get through this and nothing too horrible comes out at LSU and we can get him through. The guy's not winning anyway, and he's older, and it's all baggage. There's really no positives there with Les Miles, so why not fire him, make your school and your football program look better by saying, yeah, we're disassociating ourselves from this guy because we don't agree with the way he's conducting himself. Plus, you know what? He's not even winning anything, so it's not that hard of a decision.
Right. John Serrain says, I thought the Kansas athletic director wouldn't come out well for hiring Miles. Seems he went against the president and a number of boosters. No surprise his Miles was vetted claim didn't save his job. What's next? Yes, so the athletic director, I believe, was fired as well, or stepped down, one of the two. I don't know. But it is Kansas. I mean, I don't really know. I don't really know that it matters that Les Miles isn't there. Did he improve that program at all, Mark? I mean, I understand that they had a couple of winless seasons before he got there. Maybe he won 2 games last year or something. But I don't think the program is in any better shape post Les Miles than it was pre Les Miles. Is it?
Well, if we're just talking on the field, I would make the argument that it's no better. And it might be slightly worse.
Wow.
Actually, they were showing a little bit of life under David Beatty before he left, but not enough. He was winning 3 games. He was turning out some 3-9 teams. Again, I'm not purporting that to be some remarkable job. But Les Miles is actually, what was his record? 3-19.
Yeah.
I believe that's the record, 3-19 for Les Miles. So he was actually doing worse than the previous coach.
Okay.
And just another comment about the AD. The AD and Les Miles went to Michigan, the University of Michigan, together. They were buddies from Michigan. And so he's hiring his buddy, which, again, it's not difficult to sell Les Miles as national championship coach at Kansas from that standpoint. But he also made the hire because they're buddies. And as John pointed out on the live chat, even despite the concerns from a lot of people in authority and the fan base and people in administration, Jeff Long he basically wrote his own pink slip when he hired Les Miles.
The only question I have about this is, why is this just now coming out? So something that happened. What year are we alleging this? This is back at 2000 and what?
Oh yeah, we're back in 2013.
2007.
I always have an issue with that too.
Yeah.
Why? Because then when somebody steps forward, then the avalanche comes.
Yeah. It just seems weird to me that, again, allegedly these women say that are making these claims about him. Why did they wait 7 years to talk about it?
I try to balance that out between, okay, I can't put myself in the place of a woman and how they feel
right.
and how they respond in a situation like that, and the fear that they have going up against a person that's got a lot of power and money. But at the same time, yes, I asked the same question.
Has there been a bigger roller coaster ride for an individual in college football over the past 10 years than a guy who went from winning a national championship to being shamed and fired from Kansas? I mean, that's a big swing there. Big swing.
Yeah, because the other guys that have been shamed to that degree, and I think Hugh Freeze would be the only one that did not reach those heights.
Yeah. And I saw somebody say Bobby Petrino here. Ronan Jones says Bobby Petrino, but he never won a national title.
No.
Never even came close, really.
No. He had a couple top 10 finishes with Arkansas. They were good, but
you recognize the people in the chat here. Ronan Jones, Brandon Rogers, Lewis Papp, Go Tigers 504, Sea Dog West. Had a chance to meet old Sea Dog West in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago.
Nice.
Super nice guy. Who else we got here? Jordan Bowman, Hot Rod, Dominic Bollick 88. He has a question for you. I think he said something about, did you see his email? He said. I don't know if he's being serious or what, but
he is being serious. NX Colin show is coming up tonight at 6:00 Eastern. So as you know, I am often soliciting for sponsors and do that as well on this show. So keep that in mind, everyone. If you yourself own a business or you're in contact with anyone who owns a business that could benefit from sponsorship here on College Football Coast to Coast, contact Pigskin Pete or myself. I'm at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. So Dominic did that. I wasn't quite understanding the follow-up because I'm not looking for, hey, Mark, you should go out and get Nike as a sponsor. Great, thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I don't need those kind of emails, and I've received some of those. I got it. No, I need I work in the marketing department at Nike. You can contact, I'm setting up this meeting, Obviously, I'm going high end on the Nike comment, but you get the point.
Yeah.
Joe's Pizza Shop in Tallahassee, he wants to sponsor your Florida State coverage. Great, that would be awesome. I'll talk to him. Those are the kind of contacts I'm looking for, not just these random company blast outs, shout outs.
Yeah. So. Here is a great question from Blake Ellis, who I happen to know is a Clemson fan. He's been around here for a long time, Blake has. He says, Pigskin Pete, do you think Milton will make a difference at Florida State? I'm worried for his health and safety, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not, and this isn't even a joke. They have not been able to protect a quarterback in 4 years, right? Going on 4 years. That poor James Blackman, I mean, he almost got killed every single game back there. Now, Milton's coming off a horrific injury. So I'm worried. I am legitimately worried about him. He has the potential to be the best quarterback they've had since Jameis Winston, but they've got to protect him. So, yes, I do think he'll make a difference as long as he's not running for his life on every single play.
Yeah, think about this. When he steps on the field for the opener against Notre Dame in September of 2021, it will almost be 3 years since he played a college football game, since he played a real game. It was late in the 2018 season. Can you think of anybody that's been off a football field for 3 years? That doesn't happen very often at all.
No, what is Milton? Milton's got to be, 23 years old at this point? I mean, he's
yeah.
he was
their starting quarterback in 2016.
Yeah, right.
At UCF, yeah.
And look, obviously this is a college football channel. I'm a Clemson guy. I have no love at all for the Florida State Seminoles, but I do think it's a good story. I I'm rooting for the kid. Let's put it that way. I hope he succeeds. I mean, I don't know. I hope they beat Clemson or anything, but I hope he goes in there and has a good season and comes out on the other side healthy and successful. Because he seems like a really good guy, whatever you want to call him. And the fact that he's even coming back to play after the injury is impressive in itself.
My answer for that is that he will make a difference for Florida State if he's healthy. He's that good.
Right.
But they have so many other problems. I'm not talking about a difference like suddenly they're challenging Clemson. No, they'll be better. They'll be capable on offense because he's that good. But man, that team is so awful last year. They could go 6-6 this year, and it could be a tremendous improvement, especially against their schedule. They've got a tough schedule.
Yeah. Slim Shady Canes is in the house. Also had a chance to meet him. Several guys that I met up with in Atlanta are in here today.
Nice.
Slim Shady Canes, of course, you know him. He's frequent on in the college football YouTube channels. Super nice guy. Also had a chance to meet his wife and his young daughter. His daughter and my son, my younger son, were attached at the hip all weekend. They were running around.
That's cool.
The hotel together.
That's cool.
What does he say? He says Rush Probst is still more credible than Nevin Shapiro's. Slim Shady is caught up on this Russ Probst thing. So he called into my show last week, I think it was, and we talked about this. Here's what I'm not going to go into the whole thing again because I talked about it for probably an hour on my show. I'm not saying that Rush Probst is lying. He may be telling the truth, but I'm not going off of just of what he says as gospel, Mark. So now, but my point about this is until I see some evidence, not just a claim, I want to see some evidence, then I'm just going to assume it's a lie. All right. Now, but what I'm seeing, though, particularly the Miami fans and Slim Shady Canes as well, they have latched on to this story here and they want it to be true so bad that they're basically saying they believe him. Now, Slim Shady's issue here, from what I gather from talking to him, is that so the Nevin Shapiro made a claim about Miami doing this. How long ago was that? Was it 20 years ago? Maybe. Was it
something in that range? I think Nevin Shapiro was late. Was he there? He was their issue in the late 90s that led to their demise.
Right. So he's latched onto this Nevin Shapiro thing. As you know, Nevin Shapiro, who is responsible for the largest Ponzi scheme in American history, or second largest Ponzi scheme in American history, from a jail cell, makes a claim that Miami's buying players or whatever. And he says, well, everyone believed Nevin Shapiro, even though he was clearly a con artist. Why was he credible? Everyone believes him, but nobody believes Rush Probst. I don't know anything about it. All I can tell you is I don't believe either one of them or anybody else for that matter until I see evidence. So, but the Miami fans really want this to be true, Mark. They have really gone full force on this thing.
I haven't dealt with it much except for, again, people asking me questions on call-in shows. I have not decided to dive into it. I saw the name, heard the name. I had no idea who this individual was.
Yeah, right.
I had to look into the article. He's some big high school football coach in Georgia. And then I started to learn more about his background and other issues that he's had. And I thought, this guy's not credible. That doesn't mean he's not telling the truth in this instance, but the guy has had a career long of not telling the truth.
Right.
But then I also put that together with, let's say, Jose Canseco, who came out with all these steroid claims of all these players that he played with, and people kind of laughed at him and said, it's Jose Canseco, who can believe this guy? And then he writes a book and then it all comes true.
Well, so Jose Canseco was in the locker room with these people and saw them injecting steroids into their buttocks or whatever it is. That's different. That's a firsthand account.
Yep.
Yeah. Nobody can tell me that for whatever reason, Rush Probst is privy to whether or not Todd Gurley got $180,000. I mean, look, that might be a rumor that's going around and he believes it, but does anybody really believe that he's in on some sort of a top secret money exchange between Todd Gurley and the University of Georgia? I don't believe that.
I don't believe it either.
Right.
Again, based on this guy's track record and he just seems to be the kind of character that likes to be out there and in the limelight and wants attention and wants to stir up controversy. And according to a few people that called me, has some axes to grind against Nick Saban in particular.
Okay, he's saying it was Chubb, or Chubb, Nick Chubb, not Gurley, whatever, same difference. But okay, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you, Mark.
Well, basically just that I don't remember the exact story, but I was fed a couple stories concerning Probst and Nick Saban and reasons why he would have an axe to grind there.
Sure. You know what it is with me? I think I have a soft spot in my heart for this kind of conversation because I've been hearing this same exact claim about Clemson, particularly from the Gamecock fans. I don't know if you've ever heard this conspiracy theory, Mark, but the conspiracy theory, according to the Gamecock, is that Dabo Swinney, the mastermind of all masterminds, is funneling money through New Spring Church, which is the church that he attends in Clemson, because everybody knows Dabo is a man of faith. So he's using this church, New Spring Church, to funnel money to recruits. Now, there's been a lot of claims about this. I don't know where this started. It might even started as a joke, and then it took on a life of its own or something. I don't know. But the point is, they've been making this claim for years and years and years. I have yet to see them provide one shred of evidence that this is true. That's number one. And so I feel like I have a soft spot in my, when people say Alabama's buying players, Georgia's buying players, Ohio State's buying players, whoever's in the top 5 every year in recruiting is buying players. That's just the way that goes. And my point was, if Clemson is buying players and has been buying players, so Dabo Swinney is going into his 13th season at Clemson. If he has been doing this for the past 13 years, he's been doing a terrible job at it because they average outside of the top 10 in recruiting, right? If you're buying players for 13 years, you better be in the top 5 every year, or otherwise you're not doing a very good job at cheating. So that's the reason I don't believe any of these stories. It's just because somebody wants to believe it.
Like you, if it's been going on for that long, and in this day and age of everyone having a cell phone, everybody being privy to the information in all the various ways, these things went on in various areas of college athletics, like in the 1950s, and I can understand that being kept undercover and people being able to get away with it, as opposed to today. Give me one credit card transaction. Give me one photo that you took on a phone or something.
Yeah. And Ronan Jones here says, I'd imagine every big program pays players. Who cares? Players deserve every penny. Well, there's a difference between, they are being paid. We can go down the rabbit hole here if you really want to. They're getting a scholarship. They're getting a stipend. I don't know what the stipend is the same at every school, but it's a couple $1,000s a month. It's not chump change so that they don't have to work. Most of them have free housing, free clothing, free food.
That's not getting paid.
Yeah. That's getting paid to me, but
I've always made the same claim when people call me up. Should college football players be paid? They're already being paid.
Yes,
the scholarship's worth $150,000 or whatever it is. They eat like kings, especially, and college football is basically year round now. After the holidays, they start working out within like 2 weeks. As soon as they get back to school, they're working out. They go right into spring practice. They do summer individual workouts that aren't supervised by the coaches, but they pretty much are. They're in contact. They know what's going on. And then they go right into August camp, and they get a football season that lasts into January. They're basically under the football program for probably 10 out of 12 months easily for the year, and eating like kings. And yes, like you said, they're getting gear, they're being clothed, and they've got their college education for free.
Yeah,
that's being paid.
And Ronan Jones here, look, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So Ronan here says that there was a report that ETN got money to come back for his senior year. Good for him. A report? Who reported that? You mean you saw somebody type it on the internet in a comment section somewhere? That's not a report. Why would ETN? First of all, how much did he get paid to come back? That's who's reporting that number. He said why he came back. So why don't we believe him? He said the reason I came back is because I got a second round grade. I feel like I'm a first rounder and I want to get my degree. He hadn't got his degree yet. So why would we not take him at face value for that? He had to get paid to come back. He could have made millions of dollars by going in the NFL. How much did Clemson pay him?
Yeah, did they pay him millions?
Right. No, they don't have. I mean, I don't even people think Clemson's got tons of money or something. They're not even in the top 40, I don't think, as far as the amount of revenue they generate in all of college football. It's a small school in a small town. Not even in the top 20, for certainly in the amount of money they make. I know that for a fact. So outside of maybe a couple of millionaire boosters, Clemson's not rolling around in dough. I mean, they have that $60 or $70 million football facility, but that was privately built. That had nothing to do with the school. That was a collection of different boosters that built that place. Anyway, thank you, Slim Shady Canes, for the super chat. Mark and I really appreciate all of the contributions. If it weren't for your contributions, we would not be able to do this show. And yes, we do want to continue doing the show if it makes sense for both of us. That's why we thank both of you or everybody that donates. Also, it's the reason we are asking people if they are interested in sponsorships to keep the show rolling year round. Slim Shady Kane says, no, Pete, I'm just having fun with it, but I do find it strange how dismissive some people are when it's Alabama and Georgia, but not Miami. There might be some truth to that. I do think that he does have a point that Miami has sort of this image, but this is an image that they brought upon themselves. This isn't something that was projected on them by the rest of college football. You go back to the 80s and 90s teams, they were the bad boys of college football, and they wore that with a badge of honor. So when you invite that kind of image to your school or your football program, don't be surprised whenever people treat you that way. But I do think there probably is some truth to that. I think people are probably more inclined to believe that Miami would do something nefarious over, the almighty Nick Saban, because everybody loves Nick Saban, and of course Kirby Smart. So there might be some truth to that. What do you think, Mark?
Well, I think, like you're saying, that Miami became an elite program at the time in the early 80s, and then they carried this bad boy image, and therefore the average college football fan or bystander is going to think, okay, this is running throughout the program. But then here we are in 2021. We can look back on history and see what actually transpired, and all that smoke was smoke because there was a fire. They did have all those issues from about 1995 through the Al Golden years, 2015. Well, Al Golden pretty much cleaned it up. I think he inherited it. I shouldn't take it that far. 2010, this program did have substantiated issues and infractions, and they were penalized a number of times for them. So it's happened. Now, Alabama's been on probation. When I was covering Alabama football for 6 or 7 years, they were on probation. So it's not like they've always been clean, but it was more of a, okay, this is an isolated situation. This is what happened. Move on. Different staff, different administration. It's years later. Where Miami's had this has covered a few decades. Now, I'm not saying anything recent, but up till about 10 years ago, yes.
Slim Shady, he's willing to die on this hill, and I believe him. But he's very adamant that Alabama, according to him, Alabama has been caught in the past paying players. Miami has not. So according to him, there's been nothing but claims. There's never been anything proven about Miami paying players. And believe me, he would know. I mean, there's never been any penalty for it as far as I know. So, Clemson got caught doing this in the 70s. You remember that, Mark?
Don't remember that one.
Charlie Pell. Yeah,
Charlie Pell? Yeah.
Yeah, the head coach before Danny Ford, right?
Yep.
So Danny Ford's obviously the one that won a national championship in 1981. And then after the national championship, they had some sanctions. I think they were banned from TV, and they had some recruiting things that they couldn't do. But basically, I think what really came out was a couple of high recruits received a nice shiny new car at the expense of Clemson University. So, but they got caught, they got punished, and then they moved on from that. And that was a long time ago. But it's, according to Slim Shady, this has never happened at Miami or never been proven. So,
Charlie Pell then went to Florida and had issues there and dragged them into NCAA sanctions.
Yeah. So Florida didn't learn from Clemson.
They pulled a Les Miles, or they pulled a Kansas.
That's right.
LSU.
That's right.
You just brought up a penalty that would be interesting today, and I had forgotten about it. I didn't forget about it. I just haven't thought about it for years. Yet that's what they used to do to teams back when they were only showing 3 or 4 games a day, but they would ban them from television. You'd be like, I haven't seen a Clemson game for 3 years. I haven't seen a Florida game for 3 years. They did that to a number of schools. That would be fascinating if they did that now.
See, I don't know if it would matter now. It mattered back then because if you're a recruit, that's the only way you get to see the team is on TV. And there's, like you said, there's only 4 games a weekend or whatever on TV, and Notre Dame's always one of them. So it's a big deal then. Now with social media and everybody's got a cell phone camera, it probably wouldn't be as big of a recruiting hit as it used to be.
Yeah, and that was running through my mind as well. Although I was thinking, let's say this LSU situation, that the NCAA for some reason would pull out that old penalty and ban them from television. They can't be on the SEC network. They can't be on all the major networks that they currently are on. Yeah, you could still find some LSU video. I think that would be a huge deterrent.
It would. And we're still waiting to see exactly what the punishment for LSU is going to be. I mean, there's a laundry list of violations there between the football and basketball programs that combined. Does that athletic director still have a job?
No, even have tennis problems.
Good Lord.
It's all over the place. Well, in the aftermath of these situations, I always hate is I think the NCAA has maybe done a better job in recent years. They used to do a horrible job in terms of penalizing the wrong people and penalizing institutions that affected people that are there, and then all these people that caused the issues are running around all over the country at other places. Yeah, and it's like it's not a bunch of buildings on a campus that committed the infractions.
Yeah. Well, and it's here's the other thing about that. Like let's take the Clemson situation we just talked about in the 70s. So by the time the penalties came down on Clemson, all the players that were there were gone. Charlie Pell was gone. I mean, so the people that got punished weren't even involved in the infraction to begin with. So I don't know why it takes so long for the NCAA to hand out these punishments, but I will be interested to see exactly what they do. Wasn't it LSU last year after having a terrible season? Aren't they the ones? Were they the ones that said we're going to ban ourselves from a bowl game even though they didn't make one?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great idea there.
That's about as brilliant as Ohio State was in banning themselves from a bowl game after the 2011 season. This was the season in between Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer that are winning insanely. They have the bad season, but they just valued that Gator Bowl so much that they just had to go play a Gator Bowl game at 6-6. But they really needed the money, I guess, for playing in the Gator Bowl. Ohio State, that the next year Urban Meyer steps on campus, they go undefeated, but they can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
They can't play in the BCS championship game. Brilliant.
Mike 3883 has an interesting way to punish these teams. Now we're getting some real sadistic and twisted ways to punish people. Listen to this here. Here's one way. Make all of their games away games. Now that's creative and funny. Imagine that. Imagine you get caught cheating in some way, shape, or form, and they say, okay, no home games for you next year. That would definitely be a deterrent, I think.
I like that.
I like it too. Thank you again, Slim Shady. He says, for the record, I do believe Miami is guilty of their accusations, but they are, what does it say here? They are the OJ of, the OJ Simpson of college football. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. I would have to agree with that entire statement.
So he's basically saying that Miami's not the only one. They just get caught and they're a target.
Yes. If the glove does not fit, Mark, you must acquit. So I think that's what he's saying in so many words. All right. So any more bad news to talk about here? We went through the Rush Probst thing. We went through Darian Kendrick, the Tennessee debacle, Les Miles. That's all of extreme. We spent 41 minutes talking about the most depressing part of college football. And we did it with a smile on our face. I think we deserve some credit for that.
I know there's something else out there, but that's fine.
Right.
There will be other shows.
So you mentioned to me before the show started about an article. And the headline of the article, or the name of the article, was "Who is the next Clemson?" Is that right?
Yes. So I saw this on ESPN.com, and as I told Pete before the show, this is a great topic. Don't expect me to confirm what the opinion of this article or the writer was, because it was one of these deals where ESPN and all these other sites are locking down most of the best stories and pieces to their insiders, and it's just not worth it to me to sign up. Used to get one of those for free. I guess I should have contemplated that before I quit.
So the reason this is an interesting article, and I haven't read it, but just the headline alone grabs my attention. And here's why: because you might be thinking to yourself, well, why are they saying the next Clemson? Why aren't they saying the next Ohio State? Why aren't they saying the next Alabama? Why aren't they saying the next whoever, LSU? Well, the reason is, I believe, is what the point of this is which team is going to go from being completely average for 20 years to one of the top 3 or 4 programs in all of college football and sustain that. Not just a one and done off thing where they come and win a national championship and then they go 2 years later, they're 8-4 again, but sustain that excellence. So that's what Clemson has done, right? Since around 2010, it was a slow ascension, but for the past decade, 10, 11 years, they have taken college football by storm. And of course, the past 5 or 6 years have been at the top of the mountain, right up there with Alabama. So which program out there is prime to become, quote unquote, the next Clemson? What do you think?
And as you were setting that up, I was trying to determine what the other examples of this are. And I've got to go back to Miami and Florida State as being the last two. And it's been a long, long time to pull this off, to go from being, it was a little different with Miami and Florida State. They were like horrible before 1980. Like they were non-existent, like for most of their history, just not good, horrible. So Clemson wasn't that. Clemson's going to bowl games. They're going 8-4. It's pretty much what their program was for most of the post-national championship to, especially into the 90s. They were really good in the 80s at certain times. But the 20 years prior to Dabo, they were a fringe top 25 program.
Yeah.
Miami and Florida State were just off the map. Awful. But things changed with recruiting where they could keep their players at home and they weren't going off to Ohio State and Michigan and Notre Dame. So anyway, and I was there to see it because I'm an old guy, to see Florida State, Miami suddenly become like these giants out of nowhere. Well, Clemson again was better, but they've done it. I'm scanning the years and I'm not coming up with anybody, and there isn't anyone that's taken that kind of leap. So it's difficult.
It is difficult.
It's crazy difficult because we're not just talking about a good program. We're not talking about Penn State here. We're talking about Clemson. They are definitely one of the 3.
It's even hard to I'm not even sure. And again, I haven't read this article. I'll read it, after we get off of here, I guess. But it's hard to even think of 3 programs that even fit into the mold of what they're asking for. Because, like, in other words, like an obvious answer, if you just didn't read the article, would be like, well, Georgia, they're the one. But Georgia's they haven't been an average, mediocre program for the past 20 years, right? So they don't fit into the mold of that. I'd say the same thing about Oregon, maybe. I mean, but Oregon's played in the playoffs. They've been to national championship games in recent history. So I don't know if they fit into that mold either. I guess you would have to go the route of like a Texas, somebody who has been 15 years that they've been average, right? I mean, do you have any thoughts on which teams would even fit into the mold of what we're asking?
Based on the way it was being asked, I don't even know if they consider Texas because they consider them an all-time great program.
Okay.
That's just slumping.
Yeah.
They had a picture of James Franklin.
So Penn State. But that's one of the greatest football programs in the history of football as well.
Yeah. So they must just be talking about what's been on the field for the last 10 or 20 years, which for Penn State, under Franklin, it's been better than what it was for Clemson. But I get it. Right. It can't be a perfect analogy. So I guess who's gonna reach, who's not Penn State again falls into this category, but who's not a USC, Texas? I think Oregon and Penn State.
Michigan?
Yeah.
I mean, Michigan for 20 years has been pretty average.
They have.
They've had a couple of decent seasons here or there, but pretty Clemson-like. Let's put it that way. All of the expectations, good recruits, good coaches, and just somehow seem to show up and disappoint year after year after year based on the expectation.
Well, I got my selection.
Yeah, go ahead.
Texas A&M.
Oh, there's a good one. That's a great one, actually.
They've been 7-5 forever. 8-4, 7-5.
They were very
under a conference championship since '98.
Under Sumlin, they were very Clemson-like. They had a preseason ranking every season in the top 5 or 10, high expectations. This is going to be the year they finally win the SEC West. And then 8 games into the season, they're 4-4. That's very Clemson-like from the 90s, like you were just mentioning before. So, yeah, that's a great one. Texas A&M's a good one.
The one big year, Johnny Manziel's Heisman year, they still lost 2 games. It wasn't like they were a national championship contender, but they were really good. They won the Cotton Bowl. They finished like 5th or 6th in the nation. But basically, Kevin Sumlin went 8-5, 8-5, 8-5, 8-5, got fired. Beat everyone they were supposed to, got trampled by the big teams. And to your point, there was all this hype preseason. That program has basically, they have this huge fan base. They pack this 110,000 seat stadium. They're in Texas, so Texas football's king. But their history, they don't win anything. They haven't won a conference since '98. That was 23 years ago. That was in the Big 12. They had to pull off a major upset to even do that. And before that, they hadn't won one since the '80s. They go 8-4 every year.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
That's about the definition of average. And of course, they have, people could say what they want to about Jimbo Fisher. I'm not a huge fan of Jimbo Fisher, the person, but he's a hell of a football coach.
Yeah.
He's proven that. He knows how to recruit. He knows how to coach on the field. He's a top 5 coach in the country, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, they are. And they have all the financial resources they need, obviously, which is a big deal these days. So I think I would agree with you. That's probably, out of all the teams that we mentioned, I'd say they are the most primed to become the next Clemson. Potentially, the only real problem with that is how much longer is Saban going to be at Alabama, because they're in the same division. That's all. Yeah. Now, Clemson had to get over that hump. They were in the same division as the Florida State, and Florida State ran the ACC for the better part of 20 years. And it was a pretty smooth transition from Bowden to Jimbo Fisher. I mean, the ball kept rolling. As a matter of fact, it even got better after Bowden retired under Fisher. But that was a hump that Clemson had to get over. Dabo Swinney and Clemson had to dethrone, for lack of a better term, the Florida State Seminoles, and then the rest is history. So can Jimbo Fisher do that to Saban? We'll see. I don't know about that. But again, how much longer does Saban have? I honestly think he'll be there at least 5 more years. He's pretty much said he has no plans in retiring anytime soon. He loves what he's doing. He's obviously getting paid as well as anybody in the country. Saban strikes me as the type of guy that will coach well into his 70s if he's still winning.
Texas A&M is my choice, my final choice for all the reasons you just cited. Jimbo, money, resources, Texas. They've got all the recruiting right around them. But the difference is Clemson versus the ACC. And yeah, they had the one giant to get past Florida State, but Texas A&M's got a bunch of, they got Georgia, Florida, Auburn, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
The conference is just so much better. That one factor would make it a different situation for me. That would tend to, even though Texas A&M is still my first choice, to go out west and go to Oregon, because I could see Oregon becoming a Clemson of the Pac-12, where this mediocre conference, nobody else is stepping up.
Yeah.
USC's not stepping up. They own it.
Chris 897 here makes a very interesting statement. I'll say that. He says North Carolina and Mac Brown look like they are trying to be the next Clemson, but they literally have to beat Clemson to be Clemson. I don't think you can put North Carolina on the same playing field as a Texas A&M that we were just talking about. Mainly, well, how old is Mac Brown?
It's got to be pushing 70.
I think he's around the same age as Saban.
Yeah,
he looks older than Saban, but I think he's around the same age.
Yeah.
It's mid-60s.
Yeah,
late 60s. I like North Carolina. I like the direction that they're headed in. I've said over and over again, I think that they are the closest to Clemson in the ACC as any other team is right now when you base it on recruiting and coaching. Obviously, they have a Heisman caliber behind center at quarterback and Sam Howell. I think that the trajectory is going up. Now, the next Clemson, though, I don't know if I can buy into that. I don't think that there's a commitment at the University of North Carolina to football like you're going to see at a Texas A&M. So while I believe that they had the potential to be great over the next 4 or 5 years under Mac Brown, I don't think that they, them becoming one of the top 3 programs in the country for a sustained period of time is going to happen anytime soon. So
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
They had 2 consecutive years under Larry Fedora that were just atrocious. From a talent standpoint, they were better than what they were showing, but they only won 5 games his last 2 years. So Mac Brown's had to make an even bigger lift just to get them to like a top 15 type of level. Yeah. And let's not go too crazy about what they've accomplished. They still lost 4 games last year, right, and they lost 6 the year before. It's impressive, but they're a ways away.
It's all about expectation. The expectation at North Carolina is not to win the ACC. It's not to win Orange Bowls every year. Now, they clearly have a higher expectation now than they did 3 years ago, which is fine. But you can't compare it to. You can't compare it to Clemson. There's no comparison there. And by the way, Mac Brown is one of my favorite people in all of college football. So, the Miami fans love to come at me and to tell me how they're going to be the next team to dethrone Clemson and they're going to take over the ACC and all this and that. And I just tell them, look, that's great to think that, but you need to get through North Carolina first, because honestly, I really believe that North Carolina is a better football program than Miami is right now. I'm talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, I would. Yeah. I don't think it's some huge gap, but I think it's pretty decisive. I think it's we in taking that stance have a better argument than anybody that's going to say Miami.
Yeah, right.
And it reminded me of ranking the ACC coaches after Mac Brown was hired going into his first season, and I ranked him as the second best coach in the ACC, and boy, did I get ridiculed.
Why? I mean,
because he was old and he hadn't coached for 5 years.
Well, I mean, what has any other coach in the ACC outside of Dabo Swinney and Mac Brown done? Now that Jimbo's gone. So I mean, those are the only 2 coaches in the ACC that have national championship rings as far as I know.
That's right.
So Manny Diaz is the first-time coach. Slim Shady says he wants me to get off the drugs. He's accusing me of being on drugs because I said that North Carolina right now is a better program than Miami, and well, I mean, we'll see. I think they're pretty comparable, right? So I'm not
Well, I
saying
think they're comparable too. They did play this year, didn't they? I don't remember. We may need to look that up.
Didn't North Carolina beat them by like 50 points or something? I mean, it was a bloodbath, wasn't it, Mark?
Yeah, it was a
Am I
bloodbath.
remembering this correctly? Didn't they score like 60 points?
62.
Yes, 60. What was the final score?
62-26.
62-26. And let's be honest, it wasn't even that close. I don't know where the 26 points came from, but that might have been the biggest massacre in all of college football this past season. That game, it was embarrassing.
It surprised me.
Yes, I'm sure Slim Shady remembers that game very well. Jordan Bowman is here. He says, fun fact, Georgia is 1-5 in the SEC championship game when the opponent was Alabama or LSU. Second place is the standard at Georgia. Oh, Lord. Well, there's here's what I will say about that. Not very many teams out there beating Nick Saban, period, from any conference. So outside of Dabo Swinney doing it a couple of times, Gus Malzahn had some success when he was at Auburn. How many times did he beat Saban? Three
and six.
Outside of those guys, though, I mean, name another coach in the country that's got Saban's number. So, look, it's fun. It's a funny stat that you just brought up there, but there's just nobody else doing it.
And to back up your point, I just ran through Saban's career at Alabama. He never lost an SEC championship game after his first one against Florida and Urban Meyer when they were the national champions.
Yeah.
Florida and Urban Meyer. In his second year, Saban's second year. After that, they won in 09, 12, 14, 15, 16, 18, 20. They've won 7 straight national SEC championships without a loss. So, yeah, nobody else is beating them either.
Yeah. And Ronan Jones here says Ole Miss did it back-to-back. Yes, Ole Miss did beat Saban back-to-back, but that was Hugh Freeze, right?
Mm-hmm.
But those weren't championship game scenarios like we were just discussing, and it's going to be if ever, it's going to be a very long time before anybody beats Saban back-to-back in anything. But he is right. That did happen. Who was that? Who was the quarterback then for Ole Miss? Was that Chad?
It was Bo Wallace, and then it was Chad Kelly.
Yeah.
It was both of them. Yep.
All right. Well, Mark, it is that time. It's 1:00. We've said a lot today, and we've said nothing all at the same time. Imagine that.
That was a good time.
We did. We had a good time. We talked about all the deep, dark, depressing parts of college football, and then we redeemed ourselves with talking about who's going to be the next Clemson. I, for one, personally hope there is no next Clemson because that means Clemson won't be Clemson anymore. I like where Clemson is right now. I don't want to see a next one.
Yeah, there's only so many spots at the top.
There's only so many spots at the top. That's right. All right, guys. Thank you all for joining me. Mark, what you got going on this week?
We'll be back with the call-in show tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern time. So just make it for that, and then we'll fill you in on the rest of the week.
Great. You can also email either me or Mark. My email is in the description of the video. I probably need to add Mark's on there as well. Sponsorship ideas for the show. Thank you to all the people that donated through Super Chat. Slim Shady Canes, my man. You can catch me tonight on Uncle Lou's channel for the Lunch Money Show at 10 p.m. And we're going to do an NCAA bracket contest challenge. So everybody get out your smartphones and get ready to make a bracket. And then you can either dethrone myself or Uncle Lou, or most likely both of us, because neither one of us know a damn thing about basketball. So, anyway, thanks, guys. We'll see you next week right here on the same Bat channel at 12 o'clock on Monday. Have a good one.